particular lifetime, within recent history, there's been an increase in the fuel price, of course, a pushback on the subsidy. We feel it in the pocket, and today, I guess that anticipation and that reality is going to hit home for many. There is a particular movement now to protest and to push back on the new measures, and the newly appointed or the newly formed the National Transport Association, they would have had their meetings and they would have done their due diligence, and they're coming out today in their numbers. A member of that particular association is the political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, Phillip, and he joins me now on the Zoom line. Good morning, Mr. Alexander. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning to all of your viewers.
That's right. Now, last week, funny enough, I had a pollster on the program. I don't know if you saw the show, and the pollster actually said that personalities like yourself and others who are challenging the government at this point in time are doing a quite better job compared to the actual opposition. So I guess the pollster looked at you favorably in that regard. I want to find out, we have seen recent involvement by yourself on certain national issues. Let me know the genesis of this particular issue, and if indeed this is a genuine push to really reverse policy, which sometimes we don't really see, or if this is all part of the optics and the theater of the political journey.
Okay, the genesis of this, we were actually approached by truckers and the taxi drivers. They've seen the work that we do in the public space on all manner of national issues. Students in the University of the West Indies reached out to me yesterday to speak publicly on the issue of the exam being held on Eid and that the university is ignoring them. When people find themselves to me, is because whatever organization they're supposed to be speaking to is not listening to them. The head of the largest trucker organization said yesterday, the trucks are responsible for 90% of everything that moves from the ports, said yesterday the Minister of Finance is just not listening to them. This issue is not about fuel. This issue is about bread. This issue is about eggs. This issue is about oil. This issue is about milk. This issue is everything that moves via transportation. This issue is about you getting to work and getting your children to school. The last 3 price increases on fuel that the Minister of Finance sneered at when he said that the people didn't riot is because the professionals, the transportation professionals, absorb those costs. The Ministry of Finance seems to be trying to run deficits in the pockets of Trinidadians and Tobagoans, but these people have reached their wits' end and they can't absorb this latest fuel increase. Plus, the promised hyperinflation that this increase is going to cause, it is going to come back at them in their homes, in their families, and further increase the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago to the point where it's not making sense anymore for truckers to put their trucks on the road.
Yeah. You know, I remember you made mention of the finance minister's statement when he said people didn't riot, and I remember that leaving a sour taste in the mouth of the citizenry. That one was something within recent history, and again, there is that increase, and you said that it will trickle down to every other aspect of our daily lives. I want to find out though, why today? I know that there are plans afoot by your goodly self and many others. Many others are putting forward plans to protest, to push back. I know that today would be the first day for many going back out to school, so people are anticipating some kind of gridlock on the nation's roads today, especially if some of these taxi drivers literally stay away from the job. Why today?
Today's the day for the increase. Gas stations closed yesterday to make a little extra money, increasing the price of fuel in their tanks, while motorists try to line up in gas stations hoping to get a last bite of the cheaper price. The reality is today is the day where the line in the sand becomes a reality, and this is not a matter that's going to be resolved today. A lot of people who are thinking that this is just politics or that this is just fuel are going to see immediate increases. No company in the country has a larger distribution network than the bread company. And the bread company spends more on diesel for trucks than any other distribution company in the country because they have to get bread to every parlor, shop, and cafe every day. The cost of that increased diesel is going to be attached to the cost of bread. When you increase bread, every other cost that flows increases, and we will end up in hyperinflation in this country. The Minister of Finance is not thinking this through. We are coming out of years of lockdowns. We have a lot of businesses that were barely hanging on, that were barely surviving, that have depleted all of their savings. You have situations where you have housewives who used up all of their savings getting their children into an online class and to get tablets or devices for them to be able to go online. And then in a quick rush, you tell them, with the last 2 months of this school year, get your children uniforms and get them shoes. And now you want to tell them, pay increased taxi fares. You are destroying families in this country. A lot of people have reached out to me to say, we can't move. We don't know what to do. We don't know which direction, what not to do. Don't eat, don't pay electricity, what, and that's where we are. And the Minister of Finance is not listening.
I want to find out, there was a letter that was delivered to the powers that be. I want to find out if indeed there was any response from that particular correspondence that you all sent forward.
Not even to say that they received it.
Serious.
The Minister of Finance is treating the public of Trinidad and Tobago sneeringly and with contempt. And it's almost as if he is trying to force them to riot. A lot of the people who are taking action today are everyday citizens who just fed up. Trinidadians are just fed up of this government. They're fed up of these types of actions. Nobody's saying that this is an easy time in the world, but what we're saying is you cannot take people for granted. You are the government. You cannot move this clumsily. You have to have conversations. The National Transportation Association was created to create a platform for the government to have consultation with transportation professionals, and they're ignoring even that.
Let me ask you, you know, they say, because we live in Trinidad and Tobago, we both reside here. We don't live in St. Kitts or in Turks and Caicos. The reality is that in Trinidad and Tobago, there seems to be this 9-day wonder, this 10-day syndrome. Is this particular protest and pushback going to be consistent? Or is this a one-off that people will make noise today, make noise up until Friday, and by next week, everybody quiet back, batten in the crease, and the price increases there, and you know, there's no real reversal of this particular measure? You all in this for the long haul?
I've heard it say that Trinidad has a 9-day mentality, but none of the things that I have touched on or we have touched on have been victims of this 9-day mentality. We've carved Andrea Barrett's name into history. The petition that flowed from Andrea Barrett, and that's a year and 2 months ago, those petitions now are in the hands of the government. We have freedom of information requests to the Ministry of Health that were ignored. We have now gotten leave to take the Ministry of Health for judicial review before the courts. That's happening any day now. The barrier divers situation is another issue that we were the ones that brought it to the fore, and we're waiting to find out if this commissioner who was supposed to arrive on the 18th of April, if he is here as yet, because the people are not letting that go. This issue with the transportation, this is not a sprint. This is going to be for the long haul, especially as businesses crunch their numbers today and realize all of the follow-on increases that come with this fuel increase is going to make it impossible for them to open their doors tomorrow.
Let me find out, you just mentioned the barrier divers, and I know you were intimately involved there with the family members, you know, championing their, well, looking to champion their particular cause. Are you still in contact with some of these family members?
If I'm still in contact
with the family members of the divers?
Of course. Michael Kerman was in touch with me recently, and the only reason we're not being more public with that is because it is also a legal matter. The government has not even reached out to the families or even the surviving diver to try to say, look, some trauma counseling. That guy is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. They're not even trying to address that. It's almost as if the government wants to rely on people to forget, like you said just now, but Trinidadians don't seem to be interested in forgetting any of these things anymore.
Yeah. I want to find out really quick before we wrap things up. Obviously, everyone will be impacted when it comes to this increase with the fuel. The truckers, as you mentioned, the delivery men, people in their private vehicles. But I'm looking at taxi drivers, and many would have transitioned to CNG. Did you do any due diligence? You all did any empiricals to really find out how many taxi drivers are using CNG? Because the reality is, whether price go up, price go low, once you have a CNG tank, there is a particular ease. And if indeed the increase, what the taxis associations and some of them are suggesting, an increase in the actual fare, the CNG taxi driver will come out smiling.
A lot of them installed CNG devices early in the game. Reach out to me. The biggest installer was Automotive Components Limited. I remember the Massey Group. And they've put out a release saying that they're not doing any more repairs or maintenance. Where you install is where you have to repair and maintain. The computer programs are not interchangeable. It's not as simple as it appears. Some of the CNG gas stations don't have CNG when they go. And that's a massive point you just raised, because if the government had stayed committed to CNG is a viable alternative, and we could have been doing that. We're wasting trillions of cubic feet of gas that we could be using in this regard, but we're not. There was a push to get people to change and upgrade their cars. Why did we stay that way? A lot of people talking about this massive push to electric vehicles, and companies that have electric vehicles on the water already on the way to Trinidad, and it's looking like almost as if there is a correlation between raising the price of fuel and forcing people to buy an electric car. And then people buy electric cars, they take this chain up and they buy electric cars. What happens if there are no charging stations 6 months from now? What do Trinidadians do when the government doesn't seem to be able to keep its own word?
Yeah, interesting indeed. You know, I want to thank you for coming on this morning. Very interesting discussion, of course, Phillip Alexander. I'll give you the final say. We have a couple seconds before we go to the break. Your final
I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for having me on the show. I'd like to remind Trinidadians that this is not a sprint. This is not anything to be acting wildly about. We are supposed to stand together lawfully, law-abiding, as one united people standing together, and the government will have no choice but to deal with us. This does not require for people to behave lawlessly, and we are not encouraging that in any way. We are also not supporting any of the organizations that put out flyers to meet here and meet there, but don't put any contact information or who are the people behind it. We want to remind Trinidad and Tobago that anything that we are involved in, we very clearly indicate who we are, what we're about, and how to get in touch with us.
That's right. PEP, a political head and a member of the National Transport Association, Phillip Edward Alexander. All the best.